Greetings and felicitations, YouTube. We're in the Black Forests in some quick battle, which I haven't touched in months, admittedly. And not only that, but I decided I wanted to play some factions I don't play with normally. Whenever you're doing quick battle, if you want to do competitive, I highly recommend you do a warm-up match first in the multiplayer menu, not the quick battle menu. And then once you feel like you're back up to snuff, you go into quick battle. I was a little impatient. I did 2 rounds of quick battle last night without any kind of warm-up whatsoever. And my first round, I'm like, here, let me play vampire counts while I'm unaware of 100% what the new lords are capable of, and while I haven't touched vampire counts since Warhammer 1 was the primary game. Yeah, and I got trounced by Norska. So here we go, though. In my second round, after I had, shaken the cobwebs off of all of my, micro skills, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go into another round. They picked Beastmen, and I picked Empire. So let me go ahead and just talk you through what I was thinking when I built my Empire army. I took Karl Franz as my lord because I'm sitting there thinking, well, I put him on Deathclaw, or whatever its name is, I can't remember. And I'm going to have the benefit of Terror, because Beastmen don't tend to have a lot of good morale, good leadership. Then I started thinking about the infantry lineup. I gambled that he wouldn't take Goreherd, because the Empire doesn't tend to have a lot of armor. He's not going to have a lot of armor. This is what I was banking on. He wouldn't bring enough armor piercing, or if he did, he was going to bring Minotaurs, or he was going to bring Centaurs with great weapons. And he wasn't going to have a lot of armor. And if he did, I still had a pretty good solution to that, which is 4 units of greatsword infantry. And then I took generic spearmen, not even with shields, because I didn't expect my opponent to bring Ungor Raiders, so I brought 3 units of spearmen, just kind of to round off the flanks in case he brought a lot of large units around my flanks. Because I wasn't counting on him having a lot of armor, and definitely not having a lot of shields, I brought crossbowmen. I brought 4 units, and I gave them 1 XP chevron a pop, because I had the extra money to spend at the end. And I also brought artillery. I almost never do this, but I was sitting here thinking, he's going to have to come at me anyway if he's playing Beastmen. And it's a heavily wooded map. I was actually kind of counting on him to do it, and there was a chance he was going to bring an all ambush army as well, but I still thought, you know what, I'm going to have a good opportunity with a great hammer, with a great cannon and the Hammer of Witches to bring down large units, which is going to be what the Beastmen will have to bring in order to kill me. Then, because I wanted to have a little bit of mobility, I also brought in a couple of Pistoliers. Again, I didn't bring any armor-piercing ammo. I'd much rather just have the movement and the bullets to just peg away through weakly armored and mostly unshielded Beastmen. And you notice I paused right away. I paused right away because, of course, he did bring Kazrak on a chariot, and he forward deployed the majority of his army. At this stage, all I see are Kazrak and 6 units of Goreherd, unmodified, shielded, I'm sorry, not unshielded. Unshielded Goreherd. Double weapon strength of 36, which is, pretty solid. Get a nice look at them. The breakdown of that is that, 11 of it is armor piercing. And then I could also see back here in the distance 3 Minotaurs. Again, the unshielded variety. That's his armor piercing contingent right there. I did not see, however, these 6, count them, 6 Ungor Raiders. He brought a lot more missile infantry than I was expecting. And, of course, there's also the Harpy up here for aerial support. So we're going to go ahead and hit play, and we're going to call this shot by shot. My crossbows immediately start opening fire. I tell my cannons to open fire on the Minotaurs, because those are the threat I'm much more worried about. I'm not as worried about Kazrak One-Eye at this stage, but I may change my mind here in a second. I may actually start shooting at Kazrak instead. Cannonballs have immediately had an impact. So now we see the Ungor Raiders. I see them just in time to notice that they're shooting at my great cannon crew, and he's even sending in the Harpies. I still have my crossbowmen on on skirmish mode, which I regret right away. But I was like, oh, you're going to bring me some harpies? Okay, well, I have a Karl Franz for you. So I pop his ability, Gull Mirage for the bonus versus large, and right away those harpies start biting it. And against my great swords, the Gore Herd doesn't do well, but they get in, they disrupt, and they start charging through. And there was something I forgot to mention that I have in this army. Let me go ahead and pause it real quick. I brought this guy right here, a warrior priest, and what I brought on him, let's get this over here. Nope, not the Minotaurs. Not the Minotaurs. The warrior priest. What I brought on him were 2 abilities. I brought Hammer of Sigmar. I brought Shield of Faith. Because again, I was sitting here thinking, if he brings Minotaurs or Gore Herd, he's going to need one or the other to face my infantry's armor. I can always throw up a Shield of Faith, and I can also throw up a Hammer of Sigmar. And both of these tools are actually going to get me a lot of use here. So he pulls his Minotaurs straight through to the cannons, which I kind of anticipated. And while I'm slow for it right now, you're going to see me pull in Karl Franz and my Spearmen to deal with this. My Warrior Priest gets beat up pretty quickly by Khazrak, but I pop up that Shield of Faith. One of my my great swords start to falter a great deal, but they're going to their morale is going to recover. And here comes Khazrak trying to all in here now on Karl Franz. I activate the Reikland Rune Fang, and I still have all these crossbowmen out here who are also going to pepper these forces down. The other Minotaur finally gets through and tries to get a hold of my my skirmishers. In the meantime, I realize, well, you know what? I have these Pistoliers. I don't mind just tying down 6 units of Ungor Raiders all at once for the cost of 1 Pistolier. This buys me the time to be able to do stuff like knock out that Minotaur group, knock out another Minotaur group, save this group of crossbowmen from this Minotaur group. The Harpies come back. I pull in my Warrior Priest, whose morale is now entirely recovered, and he gets pushed all the way back out by a very cowardly Khazrak saying, I need to get away from Karl Franz. And what a hit. Just right away, Khazrak is down to 591 and dropping. I see this is happening, and I really don't want to let Khazrak just get off the battlefield. This is going to be where the morale is going to shift. I start having my units chase off all over the place. Now I'm starting to consider, what am I going to do about all of these Ungor Raiders? The Raiders get a good look at the Warrior Priests, so I'm going to pull them back. I don't necessarily want to lose them right away. But you'll notice all my infantry is still, for the most part, eager and willing to face these Gore Herds. The Gore Herds just cannot do enough damage to the Great Swords. The Great Swords lost most of their health to those Minotaurs on that charge through, or to Khazrak's chariot, and maybe a little bit of damage to these arrows. And it looks like the Ungor Raiders have finally managed to chase off my Pistoliers. But hey, that's okay. They're trying to bring the damage in on my great swords. They do sort of route 1, but this unit has enough health here that they're actually going to be able to pull through this group and into the next core herd as well. Meanwhile, my spearmen are coming back from chasing off Minotaurs. That's right, my spearmen were chasing off Minotaurs. I get my crossbowmen into place and I start targeting blobs. I pull up another Shield of Faith just to help the spearmen get the rest of that Gore Herd, and because I saw the Harpies charging into the back end of my crossbowmen. At this stage, I've put on guard mode and I've turned off skirmish, and I'm just focusing on the targets that matter. Khazrak has returned. He's managed to get back over here. Karl Franz was busy chasing off, I believe, one of the Minotaur units. And at this stage, I'm going, okay, well, look at all these blobs over here. Khazrak's trying to get away. 409 health left. I have my crews back on the artillery, and my crossbowmen are still pouring shots into these Ungor Raiders. Here comes a Pistolier charging in. Manages to get into the back end of these Pistoliers. I'm more worried about them than I am about Khazrak One-Eye. And Khazrak is broken and routing again. Flees through his own men. You saw I did have an attack order somewhere on him, and I'm waiting for it to... There he is, right there. You can run all you like on your chariot, but you aren't fast enough. Oh! And then he just pops from a cannonball. Just obliterated him. And with Karl Franz hanging right there, all of those units, morale just evaporated. And that was the game right there. I I never felt like I wasn't in control, even as the Minotaurs were barreling down into my back lines. And that is critical. Always knowing what your enemy is up to and what you have to balance it out. When I first saw that army coming at me and I saw what I saw there, my immediate reaction was, okay, well, he still has some units hidden. They're probably coming in the woods. They're probably going to hit me from the flanks, and that could be very bad for me. And then I saw the 6 units of Ungor Raiders, and I went, oh, well, maybe not then. Maybe that is the whole army. And these kills are pretty fantastic. His Gore herds did some solid work against my greatswords. My greatswords, you'll notice they didn't really gain much experience. One unit did. But my real damage dealing potential came in the form of these 3 crossbowman units here, earning XP chevrons for peppering down the Minotaurs in particular. And my greatswords, they did what they needed to do, which was they held down against 6 Gore herds and arrow fire and a Minotaur charge, allowing me the time to start singling out individual units and bring them down with my anti-large and my armor piercing. And that wouldn't have been possible without the benefit of the warrior priest and his battle prayers, the shield of faith and the other one, whatever that was. Spearmen, mediocre kills, 121 on this greatsword, 42, 97, 91. Majority of that against, of course, Gore herds. 42 kills on this crossbowman, 33, 58, and 4. This 58 in this unit was mostly untouched. Their value really came in, again, killing Minotaurs and then whittling down the Ungor Raiders. Pistoliers, 22 and 37 kills, pretty much worth the bang for their buck. I'm going to double check the value on those. And then this Great Cannon had 1 kill, which was probably a Minotaur. And the Hammer of Witches with 59 kills, as I was just targeting blobs of infantry after I ran out of large targets to shoot. Let's look at values real quick, because I am curious to see what the trade is on some of those things I did. We're going to go into custom battle here. So I was playing as the Empire. Here we are. And the quick math I did was 2 Pistoliers. That's 1,000 points. Okay. And what did I throw them away into, essentially? I took 1,000 points and I said, you know what? Throwing them away into the Ungor Raiders. That is, let's see here, 6 times 425. Let me pull up a calculator real quick, get you that figure for you. 6 times 425. That's 2,550 points. I threw my Pistoliers away into those Ungor Raiders because I knew that they would just tie him down. Eventually, my Pistoliers were going to get beat, but it kept those Ungor Raiders from doing the more important work, which was using that 17 with one armor piercing damage, using that 12 missile damage and that 1 armor piercing damage to start whittling down my greatswords, essentially. And with Shield of Faith here, let's see, these are the abilities I took. I took Hammer of Sigmar and I took Shield of Faith. Could I have taken Soulfire? Yes, but I didn't really want to spend the 151 for it. I was perfectly happy with Shield of Faith, good against armor piercing damage, and 22% damage resistance, as well as the plus 26 melee attack. When you slap that plus 26 melee attack on top of a warrior priest alone, that brings him up to 91 melee attack. That's really good. But if you put that on to a greatsword, melee attack of 32, and what did I say that was? That was plus 26, 32 plus 26. That's 58 melee attack on a greatsword. Now, was that necessarily useful? So here's a Gore herd, melee defense of 25. Melee defense of 25, and this is a melee attack of 32. So the sprints, those moments where the battle had already been joined, the two are clashing, the greatswords were hitting far more often than they would have been without the benefit of the Hammer of Sigmar. And then that Shield of Faith, what did that do? 22% damage resistance? Well, that's just a fifth of their damage being negated. Hands down. So when you saw those harpies get into the back end of my crossbowman, just meant the crossbowman could ignore that unit to a portion of 22%. Actually, harpies, I'm curious. 600 point unit. Charge bonus of 20. Weapon strength is 44. That ain't half bad. 12 if it's armor piercing as well. That means you get 12 guaranteed damage against the unit regardless of their armor. I'm not so sure that I would have picked this unit in his army, because he had to have known I could have brought Karl Franz, and I could have just sent Karl Franz to just beat up the harpies for a while, but that wasn't the best value for Karl Franz. At that 600 and with all of those Ungor Raiders, I probably would have done, instead of that, here, let me try and recreate his army to a degree. 6, and he had Khazrak, he did the Chariot. I'm not sure about abilities. I won't worry about it too much. And then he didn't bring any Gorbles. That could have been a challenge for me. He didn't bring any Bestigor Herd. He brought those. We had 2 more of those, but I'm not putting them into the lineup right yet. And then he had Minotaurs. So just by taking out 2 of the Ungor Raiders and the Harpies, I've already saved him 2,061 in funds. You want to know what I would have done with those funds? Actually, I would have tried to have done something a little bit unpredictable. By unpredictable, I probably would have gone for Lore of Shadows or Lore of Death. Facing the Empire, maybe I bring this guy. Maybe I also put him on a Chariot. And I give him... maybe not that. Feebling Foe? Possibly. Penumbral Pendulum? Absolutely. Withering? Yeah, if I thought I might be facing Greatswords, I would bring the Withering. And I think as Beastmen, you have to consider that the Empire player has to bring Greatswords if they're going to win in the infantry fight. Occam's Mind Razor could be a really powerful tool when coupled with Minotaurs. A really powerful tool. Also, as the Beastman, you are lacking in magical damage. If I had brought, say, Vampire Coast, I could have brought a bunch of Banshees, or what are they called? Sirens? Yeah, Sirens. I really feel like the Beastmen are lacking in magical damage. And then, but I don't need it necessarily against the Empire. Pit of Shades? Oh yeah, absolutely. If I'm hoping for the Imperial player to blob up his infantry, I'm going to bring that. We'll say for purposes of saving some money, he doesn't take it. I'll also say he doesn't take the Withering. We'll just give him Enfeebling Foe and Penumbral Pendulum, and that's all he'll need. Jagged Dagger could be useful, though. 72, 73, we'll see what we still have left over. So 1,028. I think the last thing I'm going to take here... Oh, unfortunately cannot afford it, but I was hoping to fit a Cygor into this list. But you know how I can afford a Cygor? Take out 1 Gore Herd, put in 1 Cygor, and then the rest goes into things like, increased power reserves, 74, 225, Horn of the First Beast would be very nice to have that charge bonus. This is like a WA, essentially. This army could have given me a lot more grief. I felt the extra Ungor Raiders, the extra Gore Herd, the Harpies weren't necessarily doing too much for him. Cygor would have forced my cannons to shoot at it. I was expecting a Cygor. And then he gets these 3 relatively healthy Minotaurs into my back line because the 5 Gore Herd do what they do, which is tie down my infantry. And then Penumbral Pendulum right down the line. This is a great spell. It really is a great spell. Cause massive magical damage, small forward moving area of effect, strong versus multiple units. This would have obliterated my greatswords if he had just gotten that line in place. And then you have 2 chariots to clean up the rest of the infantry. Just pull right on through, run them over. Armor piercing damage, as well as anti-infantry damage. What's the value for both of them? For Kazrak, that's 280 with an additional 28 damage versus infantry, and that's 224 for the Bray Shaman of Shadows. You don't need good melee attack for it either. It's literally just move them in, move them out, move them in, move them out. And that would have been just enough things that I would have had trouble dealing with it all. So here's Deathclaw. There's my 4 great swords, my 3 spearmen, my 2 pistoliers, and then I took, let's see where he is, that guy. And I didn't bring his abilities, but I could have. Banner of Eternal Flame would have been nice on him, actually. Or that Scroll of Power. Ooh, I love Scroll of Power. Holy crap. I wish I had noticed I had that. Oh, I only had one of them, so I don't need 2. I already got my pistoliers up there. And then I brought artillery. I brought Hammer of Witches, Great Cannon. Oh, I'm forgetting stuff. Oh, yeah, my crossbowmen, of course. 4 units of that. And then I plopped 1 XP upgrade on them. So you can see I also probably took another ability on Karl Franz, one of his weapons. Yeah, well, it's not an exact duplicate, but it's close. This army, I would have been hard-pressed to have dealt with his Minotaurs and his Cygor, if he brought the Cygor. That Cygor could have gotten, even if he just 1 or 2 rocks, would have done enough damage to one of my great swords that I'd be hard-pressed to deal with these Goreherd, especially when supported with spells off of the Bray Shaman of Shadows. And then run over by those same chariots and the Minotaurs when they reach the line. This is much more rush-heavy. This is much more in my face right away. I would have been hard-pressed to actually have done anything about this. Anyway, I've been rambling on long enough. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Have a great day, guys.